Freddie Mercury, born Farrokh Bulsara on September 5, 1946, in Zanzibar, a small archipelago off the coast of East Africa, is an enduring symbol of rock music and flamboyant performance. He is celebrated not only for his extraordinary vocal range and songwriting prowess, but also for his magnetic stage presence and unapologetic individuality. As the lead vocalist of the legendary rock band Queen, Mercury left an indelible mark on the music industry and popular culture that continues to resonate today. This essay will explore his life, artistic contributions, the challenges he faced, and his lasting legacy. Freddie Mercury spent much of his early childhood in India, where he attended St. Peter's School in Panchgani, a boarding school known for its picturesque surroundings. It was here that he began to hone his musical skills, performing in front of classmates as a young boy. His Indian heritage played a significant role in shaping his artistic identity, notably through exposure to diverse musical traditions and cultures. In the early 1960s, Mercury and his family moved to England to escape political instability in Zanzibar. Life in London marked a turning point for Mercury. He thrived in the dynamic cultural landscape of the city, which was home to burgeoning rock and pop scenes. By the late 1960s, he had adopted the name Freddie Mercury and was actively involved in the music scene, working as a graphic designer and performing in various bands. It was during this period that he met guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor, ultimately leading to the formation of Queen in 1970. Bassist John Deacon joined the band shortly thereafter, completing the quintessential lineup. Freddie Mercury's vocal abilities were nothing short of remarkable. With a vocal range spanning nearly 4 octaves, he possessed a natural gift that allowed him to evoke a plethora of emotions, from soaring power ballads to frenetic rock anthems. His songwriting style was diverse, effortlessly blending rock, opera, and pop influences. The track Bohemian Rhapsody, composed by Mercury and released in 1975, is often heralded as one of the greatest songs in music history. The song's eclectic structure, featuring operatic sections and shifting musical styles, showcased Mercury's innovative approach to songwriting. Throughout Queen's career, Mercury wrote several of the band's most successful songs, including Killer Queen, Somebody to Love, and Don't Stop Me Now. His lyrics often reflected both personal experiences and universal themes, giving them a relatable quality that resonated with audiences worldwide. Lyrically, Mercury's work displayed a penchant for drama and storytelling, weaving narratives that captivated listeners. Beyond his vocal prowess and songwriting skills, Mercury's visual style was equally significant. He was known for his flamboyant stage outfits, often adorned with sequins and tight-fitting garments that accentuated his dynamic performances. This theatricality not only captivated audiences, but also helped push the boundaries of gender expression in rock music. Mercury's persona was a fusion of masculinity and femininity, allowing him to challenge societal norms and redefine what it meant to be a rock star. As Queen rose to international fame, so too did the pressures and demands of celebrity. The band's success peaked in the 1970s and 1980s, with hit albums such as A Night at the Opera and The Game, showcasing their musical evolution. However, the relentless pursuit of success and the constant scrutiny of the media took a toll on Mercury. His personal life was often a subject of public fascination, as he was known for his flamboyant lifestyle, which included high-profile relationships and parties. Mercury's private struggles, particularly regarding his sexuality, were complicated by the societal attitudes of the time. Despite being open about his sexuality with close friends, he was known for being more reserved in public. This internal conflict highlights the stark contrast between his outrageous public persona and private sentiments. As a gay man in the 1970s and 1980s, Mercury navigated a landscape of homophobia and misunderstanding, which only served to complicate his already tumultuous life. In the late 1980s, as the AIDS epidemic began to take hold, Mercury's own health became a pressing concern. He was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS in 1987, a revelation he kept largely to himself until shortly before his death in 1991. His bravado on stage stood in stark contrast to his medical struggles, and for many years he continued to perform at an extraordinary level, even as his health deteriorated. Freddie Mercury's untimely death on November 24, 1991, not only marked the end of a prolific musical career, but also ignited a broader conversation about AIDS awareness and the LGBTQ+ community. Mercury's passing brought attention to the epidemic, encouraging dialogue and activism during a time when misinformation and stigma were rampant. In the wake of his death, numerous tributes poured in, acknowledging his influence on music and culture. Queen's music continues to resonate with audiences across generations, with timeless hits like We Will Rock You, Another One Bites the Dust, and Radio Gaga. The band's extensive catalogue reflects Mercury's musical genius and the innovative spirit of the group. In fact, Queen's music remains anthemic. It transcends generations, with songs featured in films, commercials, and sporting events, ensuring Mercury's legacy endures. In 1992, the Freddie Mercury tribute concert for AIDS awareness took place at Wembley Stadium, gathering some of the world's most famous artists to honor his memory. This event not only celebrated his legacy, but also raised significant funds and awareness for AIDS research, solidifying Mercury's contribution to social causes beyond music. Beyond his musical contributions, Mercury's life and persona have inspired countless artists across genres. His unapologetic approach to sexuality and self-expression has paved the way for generations of musicians to embrace their individuality. The impact of his legacy can be seen in modern rock and pop, where artists celebrate diversity and challenge traditional gender norms, drawing inspiration from Mercury's inclusive spirit. Freddie Mercury's life was a whirlwind of music, fame, and personal struggle, intertwined with a refusal to conform to societal expectations. He was a musical innovator who defied genre boundaries, a charismatic performer who captivated audiences worldwide, and a cultural icon whose legacy continues to inspire. Through his unique voice, lyrical genius, and flamboyant presence, he redefined what it meant to be a rock star, leaving an indelible mark on the music industry. Today, as we reflect on his extraordinary life and contributions, it is evident that Freddie Mercury's spirit lives on, not just in the annals of rock history, but in the hearts of all who dare to live authentically. Farrokh Bulsara was born on September 5, 1946, in Stone Town on the island of Zanzibar, then a British protectorate off the coast of East Africa. His parents, Bomi and Jer Bulsara, were Parsis from India who practiced Zoroastrianism, an ancient Persian religion that emphasizes truth, good thoughts, and charity. This heritage would always be part of Freddie's identity, even as he transformed himself into one of rock music's most flamboyant performers. His childhood in Zanzibar was relatively comfortable, his father working as a cashier for the British Colonial Office, but when Freddie was 8, his parents sent him to boarding school in India, at St. Peter's School near Mumbai. At boarding school, Freddie showed early musical talent, learning piano and joining the school choir. It was there that friends began calling him Freddie, a nickname that stuck. He also formed his first band, the Hectics, playing rock and roll covers at school events. But boarding school also meant separation from his family for long stretches, a displacement that may have contributed to the sense of restlessness and searching that marked his later life. He was a good student, artistic and imaginative, but also someone who seemed to be looking for something he couldn't quite name, a place where he truly belonged. In 1964, the Zanzibar Revolution forced the Bulsara family to flee to England, where they settled in Feltham, Middlesex. Freddie was 17, arriving in a country in the midst of the British invasion and the explosion of rock music. He enrolled at Ealing Art College, studying graphic design, and immersed himself in London's music scene. He was drawn to the theatricality of performers like Jimi Hendrix and the visual spectacle of bands emerging in the late 60s. During this time, he sold vintage clothing at Kensington Market alongside Mary Austin, a young woman who would become the most important person in his life. Freddie and Mary began dating in 1970, and he moved into her small flat in West Kensington. By all accounts, they were deeply in love. Mary was supportive of Freddie's musical ambitions even when they seemed impractical, and she provided emotional stability as he threw himself into forming and fronting bands. In 1970, he joined a group called Smile, which included guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor. With the addition of bassist John Deacon, they became Queen, and Freddie Bulsara became Freddie Mercury, a name he chose that reflected his astrological sign Virgo, whose ruling planet is Mercury. The name change was characteristic of his determination to reinvent himself, to become something larger and more theatrical than his origins suggested. As Queen began to achieve success in the early to mid-1970s, Freddie's relationship with Mary remained central to his life. He bought a large house in Kensington, and they lived there together, and he told interviewers that she was the love of his life. But Freddie was struggling with his sexuality, something he couldn't fully acknowledge even to himself. He had affairs with men during this period, furtive encounters that contradicted his public relationship with Mary. The tension between his private desires and his public image created an internal conflict that he managed by compartmentalizing his life, keeping different worlds separate. In 1976, Freddie finally confessed to Mary that he was bisexual, though what he really meant, and what Mary understood, was that he was gay. The revelation devastated her, but she also understood that he had been honest with her in the only way he could manage at the time. They ended their romantic relationship, but remarkably, they remained extraordinarily close for the rest of his life. Freddie set Mary up in a flat nearby, continued to support her financially, and spoke to her almost daily. He later said that she was the only friend he had, and that he trusted her completely in ways he could never trust anyone else. When he died, he left her the bulk of his estate, including his magnificent home, Garden Lodge in Kensington. After separating from Mary, Freddie began to live more openly as a gay man, though he never made public declarations about his sexuality. This was partly because of the era's pervasive homophobia, and partly because Freddie was intensely private about his personal life despite his public flamboyance. He began frequenting gay clubs and bars, particularly in New York and Munich, throwing himself into the liberation of gay culture in the late 70s and early 80s. His appearance became more explicitly masculine and overtly gay, sporting the clone look of leather, mustache, and cropped hair that was popular in gay communities at the time. In the late 1970s, Freddie met Joe Fanelli and later David Mins, both of whom became boyfriends, though neither relationship lasted long-term. Freddie seemed incapable of sustained monogamy, craving variety and excitement, perhaps searching for something that would fill the loneliness that seemed to follow him despite his fame and success. He threw legendary parties at his homes and in clubs, surrounding himself with people, but those who knew him well said he often seemed isolated, even in crowds, protected by an entourage, but genuinely close to very few. In the early 1980s, Freddie began a relationship with Tony Bastin, and later with a man named Bill Reed, but these relationships were turbulent and relatively brief. Then in 1985, he met Jim Hutton, a hairdresser, at a gay club in London. Jim initially didn't know who Freddie was and turned down his advances, which intrigued Freddie. They met again 18 months later, and this time began a relationship that would last for the rest of Freddie's life. Jim moved into Garden Lodge, and though Freddie still had other liaisons and maintained his pattern of separating his private and public lives, Jim became his partner in the most meaningful sense. Someone who loved him for who he was rather than for his fame. Garden Lodge became Freddie's sanctuary, a place he filled with beautiful things, Japanese art, oriental rugs, paintings, and antique furniture. He was an obsessive collector, attending auctions and spending vast sums on objects that caught his fancy. The house was immaculate, every detail considered, and he employed staff to maintain it to his exacting standards. Yet, despite all this beauty and comfort, Freddie rarely entertained at home. preferring to keep his private space truly private. The house represented control in a life that often felt chaotic, a physical manifestation of the aesthetic perfection he pursued in his music. His relationship with his family remained important throughout his life, though complicated by his sexuality and lifestyle. His parents, particularly his mother, were traditional Parsis who struggled to understand or accept his homosexuality. Freddie rarely discussed his personal life with them, and they maintained a kind of loving denial, focusing on his success and generosity while avoiding topics that would create conflict. He bought them houses, supported them financially, and visited regularly. But there was always a gap between who he was in his private life and who he could be with his family. His sister Kashmira remained close to him and tried to bridge these worlds, but it was a delicate balance. By the mid-1980s, HIV and AIDS had emerged as a devastating crisis in the gay community. Many of Freddie's friends were becoming sick and dying, and there were rumors about his own health as he appeared to be losing weight and seemed less energetic. In 1987, Freddie was diagnosed as HIV positive, though he told very few people, not even all the members of Queen initially. The diagnosis was both devastating and in some ways almost expected given the prevalence of the disease among gay men of his generation and lifestyle. He faced it with a kind of stoic determination, refusing to let it define him publicly, but understanding privately that his time was limited. Rather than retreating, Freddie threw himself into recording, determined to create as much as possible while he still could. Queen recorded The Miracle and Innuendo, albums that contain some of their most powerful work, with Freddie's vocals as strong as ever despite his declining health. He told Brian May to write him things that were hard to sing, wanting to be challenged, wanting to prove he could still do it. The band members knew he was sick, though they didn't always discuss it directly, maintaining a British reserve even in these circumstances, while supporting each other through the work. As his illness progressed, Freddie became more reclusive, spending most of his time at Garden Lodge with Jim Hutton, Mary Austin, and a small circle of close friends, including his personal assistant Peter Freestone and chef Joe Finelli, who was also HIV positive. He continued to work when he could, recording vocals for what would become Queen's final album with him. His appearance changed dramatically as the disease took its toll. He lost weight, developed lesions, and eventually could barely walk. He faced these indignities with as much grace as he could muster, maintaining his sense of humor and his concern for those around him. The tabloid press was relentless, publishing photos taken with telephoto lenses from outside Garden Lodge, speculating about his health, essentially watching him die in public while he tried to maintain some dignity and privacy. Freddie refused to make any public statement about his condition, which was his right, though it also meant the rumor mill churned constantly. Only on November 23, 1991, did he release a statement confirming he had AIDS, saying he felt it was time to be open about it and hoping it would help in the fight against the disease. The next day, November 24, 1991, Freddie Mercury died at Garden Lodge from bronchial pneumonia resulting from AIDS-related complications. He was 45 years old. Jim Hutton was with him, as were his parents, Mary Austin, and close friends. His death was announced immediately, and the outpouring of grief was global and profound. Fans gathered outside Garden Lodge, covering the walls and gates with flowers, messages, and tributes. A memorial concert was held at Wembley Stadium in April 1992, with proceeds going to AIDS research, featuring performances by the remaining members of Queen, with guests including David Bowie, Elton John, and George Michael. Freddie's funeral was conducted according to Zoroastrian rites by his family at West London Crematorium, a private ceremony attended only by those closest to him. Mary Austin took possession of his ashes, and to this day, their location remains a secret, something Freddie requested because he didn't want his final resting place to become a shrine or tourist attraction. This final act of privacy was entirely consistent with the man who spent his life performing on the world's biggest stages while keeping his true self carefully guarded. His will revealed the depth of his feelings for those closest to him. Mary Austin received Garden Lodge and the bulk of his estate, as well as his entire music catalogue. Jim Hutton, Joe Finelli, and Peter Freestone all received substantial sums and were allowed to live at Garden Lodge for as long as they wanted. His parents and sister were also provided for generously. The will was controversial in some quarters, particularly Jim's relatively modest inheritance compared to Mary's, but it reflected Freddie's complex emotional landscape in which Mary remained the person he trusted most completely, even though Jim had been his partner at the end. Freddie Mercury's personal life was marked by contradictions that he never attempted to fully reconcile publicly. He was flamboyant on stage, yet intensely private off it. He was generous to a fault with friends and strangers alike, yet capable of cutting people out of his life entirely if they betrayed him or if maintaining the relationship became inconvenient. He celebrated his sexuality through his increasingly camp performances and appearance, yet never gave interviews discussing his personal life in explicit terms. He came from a traditional religious family, yet lived a life that violated virtually every convention of that upbringing, though he never formally rejected his Zoroastrian heritage. His relationships were complex and often unconventional by traditional standards. His deep, lifelong connection to Mary Austin defied easy categorization, neither romantic after they separated, nor simply friendship, but something more profound that acknowledged she understood him in ways no one else did. His relationship with Jim Hutton was loving, but conducted almost entirely in private, with Jim playing a role closer to a traditional spouse than the public ever knew during Freddie's lifetime. The compartmentalization of his life meant that different people knew different versions of him, and perhaps no one, not even Mary, knew him completely. What united all the contradictions was Freddie's absolute commitment to his art and his determination to live life on his own terms, regardless of convention or expectation. He transformed himself from Farrokh Bulsara, a Parsi boy from Zanzibar, into Freddie Mercury, one of rock's greatest frontmen, through sheer force of will and extraordinary talent. He created a persona that allowed him to express aspects of himself that the world of his childhood would never have permitted, yet he never completely escaped the loneliness and searching that seemed to be part of his fundamental nature. His death at the height of the AIDS crisis made him one of the disease's most famous victims and helped bring attention to an epidemic that had been largely ignored by mainstream society. The tragedy of his death, like those of so many gay men of his generation, was that it came just as treatments were beginning to emerge that would eventually transform HIV from a death sentence into a manageable chronic condition. Had he lived just a few more years, he might have had decades more life and art ahead of him. Freddie Mercury left behind an extraordinary body of work, music that continues to move and inspire people across generations and around the world. But he also left behind questions about the cost of fame, the burden of hiding one's true self, and the particular pain of living as a gay man in an era of both liberation and plague. His personal life, with all its complexity, joy, loneliness, love and loss, was ultimately inseparable from the art he created, each informing the other. He was, as he sang, a champion, but he was also deeply human, flawed and vulnerable, searching for connection and meaning, right up until the end, leaving behind not just legendary performances, but also a reminder of the real person behind the spectacle, someone who loved and was loved, who hurt and was hurt, and who faced his death with dignity and courage. Settings. Use appropriate media.